me off as co-host.
Okay,
And then appoint Ingrid as.
all right.
Or you can use this.
Yeah.
Use this. Let me restart it.
All right, Ingrid, you are now co-host.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we move.
There we go.
All right.
We
So
see the
as
slides.
as I was saying, Ingrid, you could keep moving the slides to the historical context of Rwanda. I'm sorry, I'm going to be rushy through this little part so that we can talk about Gacaca itself. So our colonial period, our pre-colonial period, and our colonial period were starkly different, because one was about a nation called Rwanda, and the colonial period that was long because we had a complete succession from Germans to Belgians, and later on French, although nobody ever says they colonized Rwanda, but for all intents and purposes, I think they did. But through their time, we had now what we knew as a nation of people divided by social economic strata. We now had those social differences being turned into ethnicities, and much later into tribes, and much later translated into our identity cards around 1932. And that started a long, divisive time over which I think the colonial government found it easy and convenient to divide and rule, because that, and I think that was a policy not just in Rwanda but everywhere else in the colonial times over the colonies. And but that led slowly to a fanatical, at the end of the colonial period, by the late 50s, all the way to the 60s, we had serious division between Rwandans who previously were social groups, but now had been really forced into ethnicities and tribes, and we were being told, Rwandans were being told that they are as different as, one group from the moon and one group from another planet. So by the time we got our independence, that is how we were, and that translated into a lot of serious political difficulties, which that was the beginning of pogroms, of killing of now the identified group called Tutsi, and that spread through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, testing it, implementing it, all the stages that have been written about of genocide. We went through all of them. If any of you has read Gregory Stanton. So and by the end of the 80s, we were basically a society ready to finish itself. And that is how our own country would spend money buying weapons, writing lists of people who are dangerous to the country, who need to be eliminated, funding radios for only the express purpose of vitriolic attacks. And that led slowly into planning a genocide, and it led slowly into implementing a genocide, and we lost 1 million people. And I think each of us has heard about, the silence of the UN, of the international community. This genocide could have been stopped, could have been prevented, or could have been stopped, but neither of those happened. But the genocidal regime falls in the middle of 1994 in July. And then to manage the aftermath of the genocide, we had a justice question. the justice question we had was, a genocide had happened, 1 million people had been killed, and we needed, we had, held so many people who needed to go through a process of justice. And that process of justice, we were not properly equipped to do it. And secondly, we were not so sure that even the classic form of justice, the one we are used to, was the appropriate one for the situation that we had. Why am I saying this? I'm saying so because the genocide happened in broad daylight, happened over 100 days, happened, between people who knew each other very well, neighbors going to kill neighbors, in extreme situations, families within themselves, if they thought they had married the wrong ethnic group and decided to eliminate it, men would kill wives, or wives would kill husbands, or would kill wives and children, or husbands and children. So that was the kind of genocide. That means the people who were committing a genocide were ideologically convinced that they were doing the right thing. So what kind of justice do you really adopt in order to address that kind of crime? Because a genocide is not like you go and waylay me on my way home and you throw a spear and it kills me and you run away. No, a genocide, and in our specific case, it was someone who knew what they were doing and they were convinced that they were right, and they did so at a massive level, a very big level, to the point you needed to think about their ideological conviction. So at the end of 1994, beginnings of 1995, towards 1996, we were having a difficult journey of options of what to do, while also, holding people accountable, and those people, holding people that needed to be taken through a process of justice. But they were also increasing in terms of numbers, because every other time, people were pointing fingers at other people and bringing evidence, and others were really admitting they had done it. And, in a very short time, we had prisons full, we had other public spaces being turned into prisons. So we knew for sure we had a problem on our hands, and we needed a unique solution to this problem. And by 1999, about 350 cases had been tried. And even by the classic courts, we would have needed more than 100 years to deal with the cases that we had. Even those cases would not resolve the problems that had happened prior, that had motivated, that people knew as they were committing the genocide. So we went through, we kept on this journey of finding options, considering a number of them, and looking at what they will give us in terms of the ultimate result. Because our aim was not to just end with guilty or not guilty. Our aim was to end with a situation that could restart Rwanda, something that would enable Rwandans to start working together again, accepting each other as Rwandans, and having a complete restart. You can see the problems I went through restarting my computer. Restarting a society is 1 million times bigger. So the aims of Gacaca, finally we zeroed in on Gacaca. Gacaca basically Gacaca is a Kinyarwanda word for star grass. Those of you who know, the star grass is a short grass, almost evergreen. I think it is even sweet. I seem to see ruminant animals enjoy chewing on it, but it almost forms a carpet. And in our traditions of Rwandans, That was a place they used to come and sit, many times under a tree to provide some shade, and then they resolve community disputes. They resolve whatever was hanging around unresolved that would impede their unity. They are working together, they are staying together, they are thinking together, they are developing together. So that gacaca is an ages-old system of dispute resolution that we now thought, if this gacaca has been working for us for thousands of years, it was interfered with by colonialism, yes, but it didn't die. Why don't we update it? Why don't we adapt it to the situation that we have right now? So that is really how we ended up with gacaca. And we had this long discussion about, is it the right one? Should we go by it? Will it give us the results we want? Will it give us the justice we want? Is it going to be fair? Is it going to be, acceptable? We went through all that for almost a year. And I believe in 2002, we launched gacaca and started. So the aims of gacaca were, we wanted the truth, first and foremost, about the genocide against the Tutsi, because in very many cases, people had died and there was nobody to tell you the truth, and no evidence that was going to ever come forth if you are going only to deal with those who killed against their victims who are not yet there. Those who survived had survived in hiding, almost 100%. So they could also not be reliable witnesses. The second thing we wanted was expedition. We wanted, to see justice done while people still lived, not to be done posthumously. The other one was to deal with impunity, because a genocide, one of the things that it should tell us, all of us, wherever we are, is the level of impunity in a society. A society which fears and respects and knows there are rules beyond which they cannot, lines beyond which they cannot cross. If they cross them, they'll be held accountable. A society like that rarely goes into extremes of this kind. But in a situation like Rwanda, the state, the security institutions were all in the genocide, and that level of impunity needed to be stood up against. And then we also needed a situation, we needed a process that would result in the beginnings of building of our unity and to reconcile Rwandans. And also we wanted a process that would give us the power as Rwandans to resolve our own problems, not to create them and then wait for someone else from, Europe or from any other part of the world to come and help and resolve our problems, which we had created on ourselves. And the bigger reason we wanted us Rwandans to deal with this matter was because it was us who were on the roadblocks, who picked up the machetes, who killed our neighbors, who did everything that really happened in the genocide. So we thought, if we sit on our hills and in our locations, wherever we live, and address these issues and speak about them, it did not require to have too much education in order to speak about what happened and why it happened. But it would send the right message to the families. It would send the right message to society that we had handled our own problems. Unfortunately, there are pictures that I had put in my slides, so Diane, I think, will help me distribute them later. So we therefore adopted the gacaca court system, and they were at every cell. A cell is a very small geographical administrative space. I think it is the smallest that Rwandans live in. A cell is within a sector. A sector is made up of a number of cells, and sectors are in a district. Every district is made up by a number of sectors, and then districts are in provinces. That is Rwanda's geographic administration or administrative geographical areas. So the Gacaca courts were at those levels in three, in the basic gacaca and the appeal gacaca, and then another gacaca which would come in if the second one was not able to resolve a conflict. And the judges in the gacaca system, and I want this to be understood carefully, we did not go for people who had finished their law schools and they had trained as judges. We went for what in Kinyarwanda we call inyangamugayo. Inyangamugayo are men and women known for their integrity in society, known for their openness, known for their truthfulness, known for their frankness, incorruptibility. And if people, by consensus, by acclamation, agreed on Mr. So-and-so and Miss So-and-so, those would be that would be a gacaca judge. And it did not matter their level of education, although generally we expected that people would know how to read, how to write, how to sit and listen to what happened, and then they would operate in a college. So that was the Inyangamugayos. Those were our judges. We had, I believe, close to 500,000 of them. 34% of them were women. Perpetrators of the genocide were also categorized. Category 1 were those who were very high ringleaders, the brain behind the genocide, the planners, those who had the ideological planning, who spread hate, and the highly responsible. Then they were followed in that order by lesser responsibility and lesser responsibility, to the point of those who really went, in masses and went to steal and loot property. So we had those categories. And in the gacaca process, the opportunity for reduced sentences was one of the pillars in the gacaca process, but it was also part of the seeds of our reconciliation today, the seeds of our unity today. You can trace them back to that time, because around 2007 is when we abolished the death penalty. When the death penalty was abolished in Rwanda, we had probably over 1,000 people already on death row. But there was a lot of debate again, if anybody remembers what happened. But clearly it was the time. It was a time we should have this conversation if we wanted this result, including what we are seeing today in the evolution of our country. So what we did in the gacaca laws, in the administration of gacaca justice, it included full confession, full admission, full confession. And if it is full and determined that it is full, it meant you've told the truth. And if you killed people, you've shown where these people were buried, and you are contrite, you have really expressed your remorse, you are ready to seek forgiveness. And for being 100% truthful and open, you benefited 50% of the sentence that would be imposed on you under the gacaca law. So that was supposed to, one, be an incentive, but secondly, be the beginnings of our current dispensation. They are the beginnings of unity, the beginnings of reconciliation, the beginnings of restarting our society. And the Gacaca moved on like that for about 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, we had dealt with almost 2 million, 1,958,000 cases, out of whom 277,000 had been acquitted, equivalent to 14%, and 1,681,000 had been found guilty. Out of those, 225,000 had made their full confessions. And there is a table that I have annexed for you. I think Diane will help me distribute it, showing what was the numbers that were in category 1, in category 2, and in category 3. So today, I'm moving very fast because I want a conversation so we can have I think more understanding in the questions that we will seek to answer. So Gacaca, in the minds of Rwandans, in the minds of people who have been observing the journey of Rwanda from the abyss we were in 1994 to today, Gacaca is credited for restoring sanity, for restoring a sense of Rwandanness again, for restoring tolerance, for restoring peaceful coexistence, for restoring forgiveness, and for providing the foundations for healing of our country. Now, anybody might ask, how did you even think about it? How did you even think that this healing was a possibility? You would end up with it. We probably wouldn't find an answer at that time. We would only find a situation, and we would probably ask a question: what other choice did we have? What, apart from trying to forge a restart of our country and figure out what it is that might help us to restart, and figure out who has what that they can give right now. There is no other way we would have attempted to restart our country if we are not that bold and taking these risks, including starting to tell people who killed other people, who survived being killed, trying to tell them, look, you should forgive, and trying to tell other people, you have no other way out of this. You need to seek forgiveness. So Gacaca, through the 10 years, made these millions of people face each other twice every week, sitting under a tree, having a conversation about a son of my neighbor, the daughter of my neighbor, who was killed, who was raped and was killed by sons of another neighbor who we live together. And I am the Gacaca judge. So that was 10 years of a society looking for its bearing again. And this is a society which, ever since the Belgians introduced the identification of Twa, Tutsi, and Hutu in 1932, started a journey of division. It had started it just before that, but from the time of the identification in the national IDs that we had, that we were tribes, we started a journey of division and go all the way from 1932 to 1994, and now around 2002, start a journey of a justice journey. From 1994, we had started our unity journey. We had implemented a number of reforms, removing the ethnicities from our identity cards, stopping this whole thing of depending on ethnicity for any opportunity in public service or in the public, whatever public opportunities available. We had started that, and we were doing massive changes around reversal of ethnicity to Rwandanness, to the feeling, to the conviction, to the ideological conviction that we are Rwandans first and foremost, and every other identification, whether it is familial, whether it is clan, whether it is whatever, that comes secondary. But first and foremost, you are Rwandans, just as British are, just as the Dutch are, just as Germans are, first and foremost, those. But those ones, actually, if you go into their societies, you actually find, ethnicities which you can look at and define scientifically and factually that they are different. But in Rwanda, it was a very different thing. So Gacaca today is credited for restoring what people who go to Rwanda and see. When you go to Rwanda now, and you from the airport, and you are driven by someone in their car or in their bus or whatever, and you are taken to a hotel, and you spend your time at the hotel, and you go to a tourist resort, or you go to a conference, you don't ask anymore which people these are you are meeting, but most importantly, you yourself, you won't know that the people you are dealing with, that the people you are meeting all the time, that some of them have been serving their sentences, their genocide sentences in our prisons, that some of them are the only surviving sons or daughters in their families. Otherwise, everybody else was wiped out. You won't know that. And the whole journey that we have been making from 1994 to now is to create that kind of society, is to restart Rwanda, recreate our country, tell everybody this is who we used to be. And this was the Rwandan that respected the other as a Rwandan, that prided in them as a Rwandan, that defended them. If they were having to defend their country, they looked. Everybody was Rwandan, and they looked at themselves and within each other as Rwandans, intermarried as Rwandans, went doing everything else as Rwandans. So Gacaca is a big pillar, is a big point in the journey that we have been moving, because those 10 years of Gacaca courts were a major point of interaction in our society, that without having to take people into a classroom and teach them on a blackboard about unity, reconciliation, forgiveness, justice, and so on, the Gacaca process was that kind of open school. And almost 3 decades hence, where are we? The result of all this that we can see, and everybody can see, is, and I don't want to mean that it is only because we had the Gacaca process that we are having what we have now. No, there is so many other initiatives, reforms that were implemented that brought us where we are now. But I want to talk about one key ingredient about this at the end of this last slide that I have. So the Rwanda of today, I have very few indicators that I have just brought here. Life expectancy is right now 69 years, and in 2000 it was 49 years. Most economists, most demographers tell you that alone That alone almost double, almost 50% increment in life expectancy speaks volumes about a society, speaks volumes about what has happened in its health, what has happened in its nutrition, what has happened in its stability, and what has happened in the environment, the total environment, including psychological well-being. Gacaca, Rwanda is now a society equipped to resist ethnic division and any forms of ethnic bigotry. And Gacaca is the cornerstone of this. Today, it is not easy. It's absolutely not easy for anybody to come and try to plant seeds of ethnic division. Then everybody now knows that our tribal and the tribal and the ethnic labels, which used to feature prominently in our national IDs, have gone. And I think, the Rwandans, if you speak to Rwandans everywhere, of every shade and hue, of every opinion, nobody would again wish that we can have these ethnic labels in our identification at all. I don't think, I haven't heard about any, I haven't read about any. The literacy rates in Rwanda were 48% in 2000. Today they are at 89%. Almost all school-going children go to school. They go at 97%. Now, these are very few indicators that I brought to you to tell you one point. A country that wants to restart itself, wants to find itself, that has reached the bottom of the abyss and wants to come up, has to make certain bold decisions. And one of the biggest things that helped us in making this journey was very early on to be blessed and also to identify leadership. Leadership in terms of the grasp of where we are and the grasp of where we want to go and the grip on this journey and the mobilization of the critical masses that are needed to make sure this journey is sustained. That was so important. That was so important. We were blessed in our very top leadership, but then slowly, the top leadership mobilized the levels, all the layers of society, to the point now Rwandans, by and large, own the process of their development, own the process of our unity, own the process of our tolerance, of our community engagement, of our reconciliation. We now own what we know that we must preserve and we must guard very jealously. It is not only the results, the derivatives from Gacaca, it is also the derivatives from our initiatives at economic development, initiatives at the rule of law, initiatives at our health, trying to keep ourselves and our other generations healthy, trying to preserve and protect the environment, trying to make sure every child is vaccinated, a number of many things, trying to grow green, grow our economy green and try to emphasize our environment. All these things derive from this, whole journey that we have adopted from 1994 until now. Gacaca, which we are conversing today, is a major pillar in the justice area. Without Gacaca, in my view, assuming we had chosen, let's say, the classic justice, we would probably have ended up with guilty people those 1 million and something 600,000 guilty, and maybe just put them in jail. But would we have ended up with all the truth? Would we have ended up with accountability? Would we have ended up with communities engaging each other for 10 years? Would we have ended up with expedition? Would we have ended up with Rwandans that are now a reconciled, united people who know their history, who know what they shouldn't forget, who know what they have forgiven, and who know the future that we are looking forward to achieving for ourselves and for our children and for our grandchildren. So I want to stop there with that quote from my president, President Paul Kagame, on the last slide, that we must preserve this spirit of oneness because it gives us hope for a better future. So I want to stop there and see if we can go through some questions and answers. I'll be happy to have a go at them. I think nobody interrupted me in the course, so I will not delay you. Let me request that we can have a conversation and we have some Q&A. So Diane, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner. That was an outstanding discussion of the Gacaca. We really have a very thorough understanding of where they came from and how they were so successful and what an excellent step to the future they posed for Rwanda. And what I'd like to ask you to start off our questions is are they unique to Rwanda? Are there characteristics of Rwanda's political culture that cannot be replicated elsewhere? Do you think these are genuinely unique?
Thank you very much, Diane. I'm not so sure that they are unique, but let me say what is unique to Rwanda. The way the genocide happened in Rwanda was unique. It hasn't happened like that. There are genocides that have happened elsewhere, but none happened like what happened in Rwanda, where a people who were a nation, but the seeds of division were planted and allowed to grow, and that same nation splits up into, Cains and Abels, and then you have, a mass slaughter by people who only yesterday were neighbors, were friends, were relatives, were intermarrying. That is a unique thing that happened to our country. The other unique thing is, well, maybe that is not unique because a government standing up together in crime, government, security, operatives, churches, and so on. I think that's not entirely unique, but it also happened where you find a whole elite system of a country, all of it almost engulfed in crime. But why it happened like that was that over so many years, from the colonial times through the First Republic in the 60s and the Second Republic in the 73 onwards, the whole structure of the country, elites were nearly one identified ethnicity. So it was easy in the 1990s and even before, during the testing of the various times of pogroms, it was easy for them to, all of them get engulfed into the genocide. So what is unique about Rwanda is that. And what is unique also about Rwanda is that Gacaca, I think every other community has got their own traditional way of dispute resolution. every other community. If you search, you will really find that there was always something. And whenever colonization came, colonialists would say our habits, our traditions, our practices were either animists or they were pagans, if those were having a Bible in their hand, or they were just wrong or just vulgar. They would call them names to the point we would all start hating them, and we would adopt something that we probably would never fathom sufficiently. So that was the other unique thing. So Gacaca was our system. It used to work for us. It worked for us for all the years before the colonialists came. Even when they came, families never abandoned it, at least at the family level. So can it apply elsewhere? I think so. I think the whole principle that a people can decide to handle their own problem is behind Gacaca, is behind why we thought that we can handle this problem. The options that we were going through at the time included foreign judges, foreign prosecutors, foreign investigators, foreign aid. It included so many other things. But if you want to compare what happened in Rwanda, the 1,900,000 cases in 10 years, at the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, I think they did about 93, and for probably 10 times amount the money. So what is probably applicable across is that a society can have a very critical look at itself if it falls to the abyss, into the deep down into the abyss, and try to find within itself the power or the possibility or the promise of itself as a society of recovering itself, rather than depending on someone else to come and tell you where you went wrong, when it was actually you and your children who were waking up in the morning and going to commit a crime. So there are things that can be applied across the board. Gacaca can be a lesson for someone else who has problems, but for them to apply Gacaca, the template of Gacaca that we applied in Rwanda, may not be exactly possible, because we sort of tailor-made it for Rwanda, but someone else can tailor-make it. You can tailor the cloth according to their size.
Thank you. A member of our audience asks, how did African communal relationships help Rwandans undertake the pursuit of justice in the genocide's aftermath? Would Rwanda have been able to recreate itself without this heritage?
I am not so sure about that, because our communal heritage was there, our history was there, and it was both oral, it was also recorded, so it was there to be referred to, for people to think critical about it and actually want to bring it to the fore and put it in the line of options. Now, that one is not normally something that, how I have seen and learned in many parts of Africa, we don't normally do that. In Africa, we tend to when there is a problem anywhere, we tend to wait for someone from somewhere else. We tend to wait for someone to come and suggest a solution. Even when we have our African communal relationships, our traditional things that actually used to work for us. But in many times you will find we sort of tend to give more importance and more prominence and more trust in the promise that a solution is going to come from elsewhere. But if you look at what we wanted from Gacaca as a process, we wanted truth, we wanted accountability, we wanted speed, We wanted involvement of the community. We wanted true, people to close. Wanted closure in people's families and for people, for their loved ones. Because through Gacaca, families, millions, in terms of finding where their people were, thrown, not buried. Many people were thrown places in shallow graves, in holes, manholes, and so on. But it is through Gacaca that they found out where their people were thrown. So closure was also a huge point that we got from the Gacaca process. So look at that whole list of things that we wanted. You couldn't get them from another process. So yes, these African communal relationships helped a lot because they were there. Without them, I'm not so sure that someone would have come in and said there is a practice in the USA, there is a practice in China, there is a practice in Russia. Can you please adopt it? I don't think we would have been as enthusiastic as we would have been doubtful. It would have taken us a long time because we would have wanted to understand what it means. So these African communal relationships are so important in the sense that all historians that examine them always find them absolutely, they were victimized. They were all victimized by colonialism. When colonialism came, one of the things that they didn't want to see functioning was the pillars of Africa's communal systems, because those ones kept people together. They gave people direction. They gave people a sense of nationhood. They gave people their unity. And I think once they broke those, it was easy now to plant others and administer the people. So without them, I am not so sure that we would have, quickly generated them. But fortunately, every society has a history. So, and that history includes all these relationships.
Very good.
Yeah.
You have elites who were reluctant to give up their status.
Pardon me?
Do you have elites who were reluctant to give up their status?
Well, I don't know in which sense, but let me try to answer it this way. Before we adopted the Gacaca process, there were lots of debates, and there were people on the side of you can't adopt a system like this. You need judges who went to law school, you need lawyers for people, you need prosecutors, you need investigators, you need foreign aid, you need courts built up. You need the whole structure that like we know it. So not only did that require a lot of capital outlay and 100 years, but it also wasn't going to give us what we want. But these were also our own selves with these opinions. So we needed time to go through a process of, yes, you have this opinion, but you need to change your opinion. Or you need to convince us that we should follow you in your opinion. So maybe in that sense, those were elites, but in our process, at the end of the day, by 2002, I think we all really had the consensus on how we move. Now, the second ones, I don't know whether it's about people who were actually brought into Gacaca, either as Gacaca judges, those who are elites, who have gone to school and they were qualified in their own right. In the Gacaca system, we had many people who were elites who should be doing other things, but there was this calling that this is something that demands all of us, that it demands all of our effort. And secondly, Gacaca was not a full-time 7 days a week, 24/7 job. Gachacha was twice a week, and and it was in the afternoon. So you still remained doing your other things. So if you are an elite and you want to go doing other things, you are free to go and do them. Now, elites who might have been brought to the Gachacha court, people who got involved in the genocide and were arrested and were now brought to these judges who they thought are not fit to try them. Those ones, we managed them because the law was passed, and if the law categorized you as a category that will go to a Gachacha court, then you went to a Gachacha court. So clearly, there must have been elites who are resistant, who took long. But I think once we pointed to the direction, and when I see it in hindsight, I actually believe that even anybody else who would have come to Rwanda even after we did the Gachacha process would have found that this was the right thing to do. Now, there were another group of partners, NGOs. Naturally, in every country, you are going to have partners, you are going to have NGOs who are working in the area of justice, in the area of social reconstruction, and so on. There were some who really came up and said, "Look, you can't do this. This is base. This happened in only 200 years, 100 years ago. You can't be bringing back something that was discarded." But our question was, who discarded it? At what meeting? What was the decision? What was the reason it was discarded? Was it actually discarded? Or it was simply, overrun? It was just it was an overrun system. So even for those, because we still needed them, they would do the community work with the societies. They would, some of them were already working with communities in the area of justice. So we also worked with those to convince them, no, you can't. You can't go against this, because this is what we think is going to give us, a number of, results from one process. You are not going to get it from a classic court. In spite of the court going to cost you 100 years, you are still not going to get the restarting of a society that we are trying to do in all the efforts that we are trying to do, including Gachacha. You can't pick out Gachacha and say Gachacha is not going to be part of the things that we are all trying to reconstruct upon. So there could have been elites, but we went through a whole long process to work with them and find common ground. There are others who later on wrote, critiques about Gachacha, which we accepted as critiques. But I think that Gachacha worked for Rwanda. If it didn't work for someone else, if it didn't work for some NGO or anything else, that is too bad. But it worked for Rwanda.
Hi, Commissioner. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I'm so glad we got your connection up and running. It was a pleasure and an enlightenment to listen to you, and I hope you can come back next year or the year after and tell us more about this very, very important subject.
Thank you very much, Diane, for your patience. First of all, I'm absolutely sorry. What you saw happening to me was not just a computer acting up. I'm also not a very, very good computer man.
Well, I'm in the same club.
I'm not also a very good computer, but so I want to say thank you to you and to everybody else who is listening to us. Thank you so much. I really have this serious hope that, and I think Matilda is online. I had informed her to try and be online.
Hope so.
I really want to one day be able to meet physically with you. So if there will be an opportunity.
I hope
So I
so.
want to thank you so much. I hope I have made my very little contribution to this big area. And please, let's continue to have engagement. You have my email. I can always have questions. I can always answer them in writing. I can always field them if I don't find good answers for them. But I would want nobody to remain with lingering doubts about whether we believed in Gacaca and whether we still believe that it gave us the results we wanted. I want to thank you so much.
No one here has any doubt. Thank you, High Commissioner. Good evening to you.
Thank you very much. Have a very good
Or good
evening.
morning.
Yeah, it's a good morning here. Thank you.
Goodbye now.
Thank you.